So the question says, Jada makes a graph to show the weight of a jar when it contains different number of marbles. What does the y-intercept represent? So let's review what the y-intercept is, the definition. The y-intercept is where the graph crosses the y-axis. So that would be this point right here, where the graph crosses the y-axis. And notice how we've got number of marbles on the x-axis. So this is 0, 10, 20, 30, 40 marbles in the jar. And this is the weight in grams. So 0, 20, 40, 60, 80 grams. So weight of a jar with marbles. So for example, if I look at this point right here, this looks like if there are 30 marbles in the jar, then the total weight of the marbles and the jar is 100 grams. So they want to know, what does the y-intercept represent, which is right here. So if I look at this ordered pair, the definition of a y-intercept is when your x-coordinate is 0. So I know that x would be equal to 0 at my y-intercept. So that would be the number of marbles. So that means that there are 0 marbles in the jar. So there are 0 marbles in the jar at my y-intercept right here. So when I look at my choices, I have the weight of each marble for A, which that is not what the y-intercept represents. B is the weight of the jar by itself, which I'm going to mark that for right now because I like that. Because at 0 marbles, that would be the weight of the jar by itself. C is the number of marbles when the weight is 0 grams. And I know my weight is not 0 grams because right here I can see that the weight is already higher than 0. 0 would be down here and the weight is up here at the y-intercept. So I know it's not C. And D is the number of marbles when the weight is 10 grams. So the weight of the marbles, well, at this point there are 0 marbles in the jar. So D doesn't make sense because it's not giving me the number of marbles when the weight is 10 grams. I do think this is a little bit confusing because to me this looks like the weight of just the jar by itself is 10 grams. But I'm thinking that maybe, we don't know if this is exactly at 10 grams or not. But I do know at that y-intercept that there are 0 marbles. So I know that that would be the weight of the jar by itself. So I think D is tricky, the number of marbles when the weight is 10 grams, but I guess I'm not convinced that that y-intercept is at 10 grams. So the answer here would be B. The y-intercept is where x equals 0, and x in this problem is 0 marbles in the jar. So the y-intercept represents the weight of the jar by itself, letter B.